What's going on, guys? Hopefully you guys are doing well, safe and sound, away from all this craziness that's in our world. And making this video, how do I even begin? So 2021 has not disappointed so far. Starts off with mom having COVID, the Capitol being stormed, and it's only like a weekend. It's not, today's like a weekend. And I got a call this morning. My phone rang early. It was my mom. And it's never good when she calls at these weird hours. And she was calling to inform me that my Uncle Kenny Maduris, had passed away last night. And I talked to her on the phone before I went to bed. She told me that Uncle Kenny was rushed to the hospital. And, he'd had some health complications for a little while now. And it was just one of those things where I was like, oh, he's going to the hospital. I'm like, he had just got out of the hospital. So I figured that he just would go back and they give him some meds and he'd be back at home in no time. Like, that's just kind of where I was. Like, yeah, of course, I wasn't really worried about it. And I should know better now that when you don't worry, that usually winds up being the worst case scenario. It's like when you're worried, things seem to work out. And when you don't worry, they seem to go south very quick. But Uncle Kenny was a good guy. He had his way about him. He was very stern. He had kind of a dry sense of humor. He'd say something and have a little smirk at you, right, through his mustache. And he's an interesting guy, and throughout the years, of course, me not living there and not going back, I didn't get to see him that much. But, he played a role, and of course, in me growing up as one of my uncles that was always around. And I do have some take-home things from him. Some take-home things, one specific thing that I want to say it's a gift that he gave me that he doesn't even know. I guarantee him and the rest of my family don't even know that this was a gift that he gave me. But Uncle Kenny was a big Yankees fan. And the Yankees are kind of like the anti-Red Sox. And where we live in Rhode Island, everybody's Red Sox fan. So it kind of goes against the grain. And, him, my cousin Keith, and my cousin Kenny were all big Yankees fans. And he actually was a great baseball player himself. And he had a tryout for the Yankees when he was younger. And he made the team. And he was so sure of himself and so confident in himself and knew what he wanted out of life. I think they gave him, I don't remember the exact what position it was, but I think he wanted third. He was either third or first base he wanted. And they wanted him to play outfield. And he turned down the contract and never played. Like, he was specific about what he wanted, and it wasn't about just being on the Yankees. He wanted to play his position where he could be effective and be the best he could be and have the best chance of helping the team win. That's what he thought. So he didn't take the contract. He walked away from the Yankees, the New York Yankees, right? His team that he looked up to. He walked away from it because he knew that wasn't the right fit for him because they didn't want to give him third base. Like, he was that confident that he would be a better third baseman. And he was in the Marines. He was a Marine. But, growing up, Uncle Kenny was very, very by the book. Matter of fact, he believed in sports very heavily. And I think that, now as an adult, I understand. As a kid, I didn't. But as an adult, I understand that he perceived sports as a way to better yourself. As a kid, what better way to learn how to push yourself and what you're made of than playing a sport where you have to dig down deep and find that place in you to keep going when either you feel like you can't go or you've been knocked down, you got to get back up. So sports had a lot of life lessons, and I think that's why he was involved with sports so much. And he always took care of himself. He was fairly fit. He worked out, he ate right. He did his shit like everybody else does, where you eat garbage here and there and stuff. But he was kind of into health ever since I was like a kid. He was into athletics, health, working out, staying in shape. He was one of those people that took care of himself. And the thing I'm going to end with here, because it's probably the most important thing, is all while I was growing up, Uncle Kenny was the type of guy to tell me, like, you need to do good in school. You need good grades. You need to go on after school and go to college. You need to do this. You need to do that. Like, and he had plans. Like, he had a plan on how you should live your life. And to him, it was like a blueprint of success, because I think it's how he lived his life. And I heard this, and of course, me, I was like fucking around in school, and I, failed classes, and I didn't go to college. Like, I did everything ass backwards, right? And then all of a sudden, one time, and I was probably about my 30, 35, 33, in between 33 and 35 years old. I go back home for Christmas one year, and I bring my girlfriend for the first time to meet my family. And now I'm an adult, and my whole family talks to me different. They talk to me not as a kid anymore, but as an adult. They still bust my chops like I'm a kid, but as a 30-something-year-old man, I'm back there talking to Uncle Kenny on Christmas Eve in Grandpa's house on Arlington Avenue. And he says, "Remember all that stuff I used to tell you about this, that, do this, do that, do this?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Forget it." I was like, "What the hell?" I'm like looking at him. I'm like, "What the hell is going on?" He said, "Whatever you want to do, go out and do it right now while you're young and you can enjoy life." He said, "Because your aunt and I want to travel now. And now that we're older," he's like, "we can't enjoy it like we did when we were younger. We have to take medications. We have this problem, and I'm tired." And he went through this whole thing about like if he had done what they were trying to do in their retirement when they were in their 30s or 20s or maybe 40s, then they would have had much more fulfilling time doing the things that they wanted to do. That now they felt like the window of opportunity to feel the best that they could feel while they're doing this stuff had passed, and he regretted that, and he wanted to make sure that we understood that while we were still young, we should go out there and do the things we want to do. And this really is the only conversation that I remember ever having with him that was completely, he was like a broken record, like clockwork, saying the same shit every time you would say something to him. He would say the same shit, and he would have his kind of smirk through his little mustache. He'd do that with his head. He'd like, like, "Yeah, look at this guy, yeah, over here, this kid over here," right? And then all of a sudden everything changed, and he had this life lesson that he wanted to hand off. And I don't know if he handed it off to all my cousins too. I don't know, but he definitely, face to face, told me that in front of my girlfriend at the time, and it did make a difference. Uncle Kenny, it made a difference because I did listen to what you said because it made sense. Not that the other stuff you said didn't make sense, but it made sense that if, at that point in my life, if that was the best I was going to be, right? Meaning that was the best I was going to feel. Because as you get older, it kind of declines. Not steep, but eventually you start to feel different. You slow down a little bit. But, until you hit a certain age, I'd say like in your 30s, like, you start to slow down a little bit after 30s, So that was the perfect time where you could absorb everything. You could experience everything. You had enough energy to do it. Like, your body was young enough to bounce back from not sleeping, while you're traveling and stuff like that. And I did. I did. I went out there and did all that stuff. And it was definitely Uncle Kennedy that had an influence over me that made me see those things because I was figuring them out on my own. But it was like he confirmed it by having been through it himself. And in a spot now where, he's trying to hand down information so we don't wind up making the mistakes that he made. It makes him a good uncle. I'm going to miss him. I'm going to miss his quirkiness. I remember going to his house down in Bristol. They had the in-ground pool and the pool table downstairs, and it's just, the older you get, things change. People disappear. Like, you go on because you have to, but nothing's the same anymore. One by one, people disappear in your life, relatives, friends, family, and you just, I don't know, I guess this is what my grandfather felt like. By the time he died, like, all of his friends had died, and my grandmother had died. He had a girlfriend after my grandmother, she died. Like, his dogs were gone. Pretty much everybody around his age and his generation were dead already. He was like the last man standing, pretty much. And I couldn't figure out why he was so miserable half the time. It's because you lose everything. You lose everything and you lose everyone. The longer you live, the longer you outlive people, the more lonely it gets, I guess. And in 2021 is starting off with a kick to the chest, which, I know I need to expect these things because people in my family and stuff are getting older, and they're getting to the point where they have health complications, and, we don't expect everybody to be around forever, but it's different when it's your uncles, your aunts and uncles. It's different when it's your grandfather. Like, you expect grandpa and grandma not to be around forever because they're old. When you're born, they're older. By the time you're a teenager, they're old. you expect them to not, be around much past, where, the 80s, 90s, whatever the case may be. But when your uncles and aunts who you've known since, you were born and they were in their maybe early 20s or mid 20s, and now they're in their 70s and 80s, and you don't realize that all that time has gone by and you've lived it with them, and, they're ending their part of their journey. It's a natural reaction to look at your own mortality and think about how much time you have left and can you use that time. And that's Uncle Kenny's lesson. Right now I have time. I don't know how much time I have left, but whatever time I have left, I can use it to experience life as opposed to keep my head down, work, and try to experience later on when you can't really experience it. It's a different experience. So I'm going to have my first meal of the day now. And I'll think about Uncle Kenny today and some of the times that we had throughout the years. Of course, my deepest condolences go to Auntie Liz, Keith, little Kenny, Scotty. 2021 is starting off like a bitch. And at least for my family, 2021, it's changed our lives again, Uncle Kenny passed away. Mom has coronavirus. Our lives are forever changed in the first week. God help us all.